Hey everyone, my name is Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today I'm doing a book haul. I somehow managed to acquire 24 new books in the last couple months. This is definitely a mix of little free libraries and I definitely bought some as well. So a pretty good mix. I tried to categorize them in genre or category roughly. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to start with my favorite category, historical fiction. So the first one found in a little free library is Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon. I have the first three Outlander books, Outlander, Dragonfly and Amber, and The Voyager. Still haven't read book 2 or 3, but Outlander's one of my favorite books. Couldn't pass this up at a little free library. It's the mass market edition, which is not my favorite. I really want to keep this around just in case I do read these books physically and I really want one physically. I'm not a big like collector, so I don't really care if they match or not, or if this one's used or not, but found one, wanted to hold on to it, and we'll see if I read them. That was my hope for the year. Not to read all of them, but to at least get through a few more. I don't know if that's happening because it's almost like halfway through the year and I still haven't picked up Dragonfly and Amber, so we'll see. Up next, I have Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This is a book that I see on every single historical fiction list. I actually have hopefully a video coming soon down the line where I read some of the most popular historical fiction books that I haven't read yet, and this is definitely one of them. So also found in a little free library and had to scoop it up. I know it's set in like Tudor England, and I think it has to do with like Henry VIII's wives or something like that. Yeah, it's set in the 1520s in England, Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn. I definitely want to read some more like medieval and Tudor England kind of books because I really actually like the show Reign on CW or WB or whatever it was, even though that was very fictionalized, but still I did enjoy that show and I feel like I would enjoy some historical fiction in that time period. Next up, a book that I purchased, Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon. So spoiler, you'll see this in my wrap up, but I actually just finished this book 2 days ago and I absolutely loved it, so I had to own it. I think Amy Harmon is definitely an author that I'm going to try to read the rest of her books because I loved how this was written and I love the story. An easy 5-star read, a new favorite, gonna have on the shelf, gonna recommend to my friend. Yeah, this is a historical fiction, a newer release. I believe it was published in 2020. It's set on the Oregon Trail. It's this epic adventure. There's a lot of sadness and tense stuff that happens, and dysentery and cholera and people dying and Native Americans and all that stuff. But at the center, it's this beautiful love story. So I really enjoyed it. Then I have The Help by Kathryn Stockett. This is also a historical fiction that's on all of the most popular historical fiction lists. I've watched the movie, loved the movie. I've never read the book, so I wanted to have it and read it. And finally, in this category, another chunky book, The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This is also a top historical fiction book. I can't really tell you what it's about, except that it's also set in like medieval England, and I think it's about a building of a cathedral. It's incredibly intimidating. I don't know when I'll ever read this. It's also like 900 pages. Like I said, I want to make that video where I read the popular historical fiction books, and scored this one at a little free library in like perfect condition. I'm determined to read this someday. Don't know when. Soon, hopefully. If I call myself a historical fiction fan and reader, then I really should read some of the most popular and well-loved best-selling books in that genre. So I need to do myself a favor and read it. Let me know. I don't know. Have you read it? What are your thoughts? I'm a little scared of it. Next up, I'll mention a couple that I did purchase. Had to purchase, couldn't help myself. I went to Powell's and saw this little book, 50 Ways to Help Save the Bees by Sally Coulthard. If you saw my all the books about bees video, then you know that I'm a bit of a collector. So found this little adorable book and excited to read it and excited to just own it and have it on my shelves. Cute little book I couldn't pass up. On the same line, The Music of Bees by Eileen, Garvin. Also found on a shelf, couldn't walk past it and not pick it up. And this is a double whammy for me. One, it's about bees and has bees on the cover, so like must own it. And two, it's set in Oregon. It's set in Hood River, which is like not very far from here in the Columbia Gorge. And this lady opens like a beekeeping community to help those that need like peace and refuge, and beekeeping is like a way to escape and get rest, which is very interesting. So I'm very excited to read this hopefully soon. This feels like a really good like summer read. I have a few nonfictions The Glass Castle by Jeannette Walls. This is a book I've already read and loved it, but I found this in a little free library and I thought I have to own it because, again, like I said, I want to own books that I love and would recommend to people. This is definitely one of those books. This is Jeannette's memoir about growing up in a very like dysfunctional and wacky family and just really what like unconditional love means and loving your family and all that kind of stuff. Really enjoyed this one, excited to own it. Then I have The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. This is a book that I see around and that I've seen around as one of those like must-read nonfictions. And one, I like that it's short. I also like that it was free. And I also have another like secret TBR video that I would like to make about reading some of those like self-helpy kind of books that I have on my shelves. And this kind of fits the bill for that. So we'll see when I get to it. All right, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not entirely sure why I picked this one up, but this is Pocahontas by Paula Gunn, and this is a biography that tells an extraordinary story of the beloved Indian maiden from a Native American perspective. Dr. Paula Gunn, the acknowledged founder of Native American literary studies, draws on sources often overlooked by Western historians and offers remarkable new insights in the adventurous life and sacred role of this foremost American heroine. I think that's what got me. I'm very curious about this. I'm wondering if it will be a little bit too just straight history and boring for me. But I'm willing to expand my horizons because I do love nonfiction. I read over 50% nonfiction books. I read a lot of memoirs and autobiographies, but I'm interested to step into a biography and see what that's like, and why not start with Native American studies. Next up, I have a little bit of a Christian stack here. This one is a book that you probably see a lot. It's The Shack by W.M. Paul Young. I'm gonna be honest, this is not a book that I'm gravitated towards picking up. The reason why I did, again, free from a little free library, is because I want to read books that are set in Oregon and I want to make a video about that. And this is one of the books that is set in Oregon. It's also a really popular Christian fiction book. I think it's Christian fiction. This is a book about this man whose daughter dies and he's struggling with grief and depression and he doesn't really know what to do with himself. And then he like walks to the shack, abandoned shack in the Oregon wilderness, and he apparently like talks to God. So I know that there was a movie that was made based on this book, and I feel like this is quite popular in like Christian circles. I'm skeptical, but I again still want to read it because I want to read books that are set in Oregon. I don't know why, but that's what I'm gonna do. Anyways, we'll see when I get to this one too. All right, these next two books, 40 Prayers for My Husband and 40 Prayers for My Wife by Ryan and Selena Frederick. These two books me and my husband purchased to do like as a challenge to grow in our spiritual life. So we'll see how that goes, but we're hoping to get started. It's kind of like a journal situation, journal devotional, where you read something and you pray and then you journal about it. So yeah, we're looking forward to doing that. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you know. And then I mentioned in a couple of my vlogs that I was reading The Imperfect Disciple, a Christian nonfiction book with some of my girlfriends in like a book club that we meet up in person every week and talk about. And it was my turn to kind of pick the next book. And so I purchased a couple that are on the radar. We haven't finalized which one we're gonna do yet, but it'll probably be one of these two. So the first one is 10 Words to Live By, Delighting in and Doing What God Commands by Jen Wilkin. This is a new release, and actually I saw Chantel from An Intentional Life read the arc of it, and she really liked it. She gave this book 5 stars, I believe. This book centers around the 10 commandments, and I think it breaks them down for what it means to obey God in today's world. Again, sounds like the perfect book for like a Bible study. And then the next possibility is How Not to Read the Bible, Making Sense of the Anti-Women, Anti-Science, Pro-Violence, Pro-Slavery, and Other Crazy Sounding Parts of Scripture by Dan Kimball. This is a book that I saw my pastor, John Mark Homer, mention in his Instagram. That is a good book that he enjoyed reading. And this one is definitely something that I want to pick up because I have been reading through the Old Testament and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why is this in here? Why is this in the Bible? Or like, why did this happen? And you have all these questions about why stuff's in scripture that just doesn't make sense to us in our day and age and in our world and even in our faith. And it's very challenging to think about those things. So I'm excited to have a resource and to see what this book might have to say about certain things, particularly in the Old Testament, surrounding all of those crazy laws and stuff that happens in the Old Testament. My camera was on the last stack of books, so I had to move it around, but we're almost there, I promise. So I have what I'm calling like literary contemporary books. The first one is Little Labors by Rivka Galchen. This is a book that I solely picked up because of the cover and the size of the book. I wish that the contents inside were just as good as the outside. Unfortunately, this book just didn't work for me. I picked this up at a little free library and read it in that same week and really didn't like it. This is a set of essays about birth and babies and Japanese literature, and it was very like stream of thought, stream of consciousness, really random for me. I'm glad that I picked something up like this and read out of my comfort zone, but it was just a little strange for me, so it didn't really work. So I'll be putting this back into another little free library at some point. Even though I hauled it, I'm just gonna unhaul it, so it'll be leaving my shelves, but I did want to mention it. Then I have We Are Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler. This is a book about a girl who apparently is silent or mute, and she's dealt with some trauma about her sister disappearing and her brother disappearing. She's now in college and she has to go back home and figure out how to deal with that trauma. So from that synopsis, it's not really the kind of book that I would pick up usually, but I did check on Goodreads and it had a lot of good reviews, so we'll see. Next up is Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. Again, a literary story. Apparently, it is an entertaining novel about a family coming to terms with who they are and the power of a daughter's love for her imperfect mother, and it's set around Antarctica. I just realized that was supposed to be a glacier in the background. We'll see when I read that. Next up, The Husband's Secret by Liane Moriarty. I read Big Little Lies last year, loved it so much. It was such a fun read, and I want to read more Liane Moriarty this year. This book is about a woman whose husband died and he wrote a letter on the day of his death. And apparently it's some secret and stuff unravels. I think it's also one of those, like, it's a thriller and a mystery, but it's also like comedic and literary and relatable, if that makes sense. If it's anything like the Big Little Lies kind of energy, I feel like I'll enjoy it. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why I picked this one up either. Again, from a little free library, so like it's free, you know, what can you do about it? But Leave the World Behind by Ramon Alam. This is a thriller horror that I've seen a lot of people rate really poorly. So I don't know why I technically would read this if I've just heard bad things. But it's short and it's set in New York and it's about kind of the end of the world and something weird happens. I don't necessarily love books that are super weird, so I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this. We're almost there. This one is Out of the Dust by Karen Hesse. It is a Newbery Medal book, a kid's book, middle grade. It is set during the Dust Bowl. The only reason why I picked this up is that I saw Krista from Books and Jams read this. I don't read a lot of middle grade, but again, was free. And it's set during the Dust Bowl, which is The Four Winds, which I have right there, is also set during the Dust Bowl Depression era in America, and I feel like reading these two together will be a good pairing. Have like a child's perspective and then like a adult perspective of that time period. Another book that I couldn't pass up, Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I really liked this edition. I didn't read this book in high school. I have heard not great things about it, but it is one of those like must read in your life classics, books you should have read in high school kind of things. All I know, it's like it's a bunch of boys stuck on an island and they have to survive, and it's like Boy Scouts meets, I don't know, cannibalism. I feel like they have to like there's something bad that happens. I feel like that's the thing, but I could be wrong. Almost there. I have Life of Pi by Jan Martel. Never read this in high school, never watched the movie. I think it's about a boy and him and his parents are transporting animals on a ship, and that ship has a wreck, and so he's stuck with the tiger on a surfboard in the middle of the ocean. And I feel like if I'm remembering correctly from like the movie trailer, it's a little bit like surreal and magical, but I could totally be wrong. Similar to Lord of the Flies, I feel like this is a like must read in your life kind of book. So maybe I just need to make a whole video about those and then just read all of those books. And then finally, I had two very disgusting, ugly editions of Pride and Prejudice and Wuthering Heights. And I switched those out at a little free library for this pretty edition of Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. It's not my favorite edition of the book. If I were to purchase it, I probably wouldn't purchase anything with like a face or portrait on it. I like more illustrative covers. It's a Barnes & Noble classic. It's hardcover, which isn't my favorite, but again, would much rather own this than the ugly like Twilight versions of Jane Austen's books that I owned. So switch those out. I actually haven't read any Jane Austen and I need to. That's kind of the theme of this video, is I feel like I need to read all of these books. Anyways, we made it through. It's funny how I'm reading all these books about like minimalism and less is more and like not hoarding, but it's really hard when you start a booktube channel and you literally just want to own all of the books. But I feel like I also have a pretty good relationship about getting rid of books that I don't like. So I'm comfortable enough that when I read some of these, if I don't feel them, I'll just give them away. I'll put them in a little free library and maybe someone else will pick it up and love it. So that's kind of, anyways, how I'm justifying it, I guess. I feel like I have so many books that I need to read, so I'm a little bit overwhelmed. But there's a lot of decent books on there that I hope to get to soon and hope to read so much this summers. Again, let me know if there's any that you'd love to see me read. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys in another video soon. Actually leaving to California tomorrow morning, so I'll be doing a little bit of a LA San Diego vlog, and that should be the next video that you see from me. But bye.